Okay, I've backed the camera up a bit so I can give you a little bit of a demonstration with drop spindle. So drop spindle is how most people first have their first look at spinning yarn. And basically, this is your drop spindle, and they come in different types. This is the one that I most like to teach on. It is a top whirl drop spindle, meaning that the whirl is on the top. A bottom whirl drop spindle looks pretty much exactly like that, except the hook would be up here, but the whirl would be down here. But I like teaching on a top whirl drop spindle because most people, when they start spinning on a drop spindle, are going to basically get the twist and then stick it under their armpit if you're standing up, or get the twist and then sandwich it between your knees if you're sitting down. So having the shaft down here on the bottom definitely makes that easier than having like the whirl, and that would be awkward. But the main idea with making your own yarn is the twist is the glue. So the twist is the glue that turns it from fluffy roving wool into yarn. So you're pretty much trying to control how much twist gets into your fiber supply at what width. So if you want big old bulky yarn, you're going to want to let the twist get into a thicker section, and that's going to make either a mess or really thick yarn if that's what you're going for. If you want thin yarn, then your goal is to try to pull apart or draft. That's your vocabulary word. Drafting is when you pull it this way. Drafting your wool fiber supply into a thin amount, a very thin amount, and then getting the twist into it in a very thin space. And so that's how you're controlling the size of the yarn. When people start spinning, it usually goes one of two ways. They either naturally gravitate towards making very, very thin yarn, and then their problem is it breaks. Or if you're me, your first yarns are like rope. They're very thick, and that just meant that I was getting the twist in a thicker fiber supply. And so that was why my yarns were turning out thicker. So when you want to start out, basically you're just trying to get anything made, and then you worry about fine-tuning it later. So let's see. To start out, let me take this off. I already had this on here because I want to show you how to start from the total beginning. So to start out, you're going to take your hook, and I do have more in-depth explanation on this and a humongous YouTube channel, so you can get more on this, but I wanted you to have a, a starting point. What we're going to do is we're going to attach the fiber. So here goes on that. So in review, now that we have attached, basically we've made a leader thread from the hook, wrapped it around the bottom, and then brought it back up. See, there we go. They go from the bottom, and it comes back up and just goes under the hook. So that's not complicated. It looks complicated, but it's not complicated. Now we're just gonna, so now we're attached. That's the hardest part. Once you've done that part, you're good. Next part is we're just gonna spin, and then, you're getting your twist loaded in there again. And if you're doing the park and draft method, you stick it under your armpit or in between your knees. Switch your hands. We switched the pinch. See, don't miss that. And then I'm going to use both my hands to kind of pull and draft my yarn from the fiber supply all the way out, like so. And especially when you first start out, you're going to end up with like a weird poofy section sometimes, and that's okay. The goal is not to go back and fix the poofy section. You call the poofy section art yarn, and then you just wind it on here, and it will knit up just fine. You just have to practice. You just keep going. So see, we're going to load it on here. You got to leave enough of a tail to bring it back up and put under the hook. You're going to do that. Park, pinch, draft, and pull out. So that is a really basic intro to making your own yarn. And as you learn what you're doing and you practice, you can intentionally change the thickness of your yarn. You can intentionally leave these little poofs, which is where you get the thick and thin yarn I showed you earlier on some of my projects. You can two-ply them together to make it thicker, or combine colors. So there's really, like the beehives, thread, there are endless possibilities, basically, of how you can create different yarns that then translate to garments differently, once you get your brain wrapped around how you create yarn. So it's a lot like, and I don't know, in my dream yarn course, I've related a lot to like baking or cooking. Because you know how, especially with cooking, I feel like baking's much more precise. But I'm more of a cook than a baker myself. Once you learn kind of like, okay, this is how I saute chicken, then you've got the sauteing the chicken down. You can build on with lots of different recipes, different flavors, different seasonings, different techniques. You can fillet the chicken, you can bread the chicken, you know, you can do a lot of different things once you get down that like, okay, butter, olive oil, chicken, saute the chicken. Like once you get past this is the basic part, and then you can really build on and add on from there as you learn what you're doing. And so I will also show you real quick kind of the same idea on a spinning wheel, just so you can get the full circle. And that will be my talk on how to use and create different things from more unusual yarns. Okay, I'm back. We're in another room. So the lighting and everything may be different. This is the room that one of my spinning wheels is in. And so I've got some really nice chocolate brown merino. And I'm going to show you kind of how what you just saw on the drop spindle would translate into a spinning wheel. So here we go. Okay, this is a Spinolution brand spinning wheel. So it's got this big old bobbin. Most spinning wheels don't have bobbins this big, but, you know, if you like to either spin lots of yardage or you like to have options for types of yarn, these are great wheels. I'd be happy to tell you more about them. This one also has kind of a yarn winder attachment on it. So this black thing is not typical either, but it helps to wind the yarn on here evenly without me having to switch pegs, which isn't really, you know, that big of a deal. But I just wanted to, if you were totally new to spinning wheels, this particular contraption is not typical, I guess. So what I'm going to do, you see my feet are here. My feet, basically on this spinning wheel, instead of having my hands doing the twisting, my feet are doing the twisting. And the benefit there is that I can twist continuously without having to, you know, stop and start all the time to load the twist. So the twist basically runs from here. The flyer head is going to spin like the whirl did on the drop spindle, except here it's the flyer head. And then the fiber supply comes through here. So it's got a hook, same idea as the drop spindle. And then with the twisting, it frees up both of my hands to be able to draft. So you should recognize this drafting motion where I'm pulling it down to the thickness that I'm looking for here. And you can see it's easier to keep an even yarn if you've got a continual twist versus a starting and stopping twist. So that's why it's really fun to learn on a drop spindle. And if you're really just wanting to take some fiber on vacation for, you know, like vacation spinning, portability, drop spindles are fun. But if you're really serious about wanting to get into spinning, you can see that you get a much more consistent final product, as well as you can definitely get into the flow a bit more with it on a spinning wheel. So here's an example of an add-in. This is natural brown merino, and this is a dyed, this really pretty periwinkle color of a Gotland lock. You can see it's long and kind of shiny and springy, and you can definitely add texture and different types of fiber in to what you're spinning, and that can be done on a drop spindle, but I definitely find it more fun and enjoyable on a spinning wheel. So that's kind of the breakdown of how you would spin yarn. You can see all the different, like the locks coming in here onto a spinning wheel.